I'm going to explain to you in 5 simple reasons why Kamala Harris lost this election to President-elect Donald Trump. Okay, let's go through them because I think it's really, really important for Democrats to understand what went wrong. All right, reason number 1 Kamala Harris lost: the economy. Stupid. Not you, stupid, but you remember James Carville saying that in 1992. It's the economy, stupid. Well, he was right then, and he's right now. What happened in this election was that fundamentally, strip everything else out. If you need to tell people one sentence about this election, you can say it was about the economy. So, 67% of voters on Tuesday, 2/3, said that the state of the economy was either not so good or poor. Of that group, so of that 2/3 of the electorate, Donald Trump won 69% of those voters, and Kamala Harris won 29% of those voters. A 40-point gap. I'm going to throw a bunch of more numbers out at you, and I think they're important, but there's nothing more important than that. That's it. People were unhappy with the economy by and large, and they did not think Kamala Harris had the answers. He won voters who thought the economy was poor or not so good by 40. That's 40, not 14. 40. All right, that's point number 1, and the most important point. Point number 2, Joe Biden. Joe Biden has not been a popular president for at least the last 2 years. Most polling in the run-up to the election showed him with 38% approval, 39% approval, 40% approval. His approval rating in the final quarter of this year was lower than every other modern president other than George H.W. Bush, who, if you are a student of history, you know, lost his reelection bid to Bill Clinton in 1992. So that makes some sense. Biden did not help Harris in addition to being unpopular. Because he kept injecting himself into the campaign. He would do events. He would do interviews. He would do things that would draw attention to him and remind people, oh yeah, Kamala Harris is Joe Biden's VP. And obviously, the much debated, did he call Trump supporters garbage in the final week of the campaign? Well, that got a massive amount of attention and bad attention for Kamala Harris. So that's reason number 2, Joe Biden unpopular. Reason number 3 is tied to reason number 2. It was not all Joe Biden's fault. Reason number 3 is Kamala Harris didn't effectively break from Joe Biden. Look, Joe Biden's unpopularity, as I said, was not new. It didn't happen after he dropped out of the presidential race in July. He'd been unpopular for a really long time. So if you're Kamala Harris and you know you're his vice president and you're not going to be able to change that, order number 1, or maybe order number 2 after you sort of set up a campaign and figure out like how the phones work, order number 2 should be get as far away from Joe Biden as you reasonably can, because this is politics, man. You don't want to be associated with someone who is that unpopular. People told pollsters over and over and over again they did not want a Biden second term. They didn't like Joe Biden. They didn't approve of how he handled the economy. They didn't approve of how he handled immigration. They didn't approve of how he handled foreign policy. So Harris needed to get away from all of that. And what did she do? Not nearly enough and not nearly soon enough. So go back last month. Go back to October. She's on The View. Sunny Hostin. Sunny Hostin is probably the person who asked the most important question in the entire campaign. Sunny Hostin asked Kamala Harris, is there anything you would do differently if you had been president than Joe Biden did over these last 4 years? And Harris said, I can't think of anything I would do different. What? How can that be the answer? You know that question is coming at some point, right? You say something like, look, I was the vice president of the United States. When I disagreed with the president, I told him privately. He made the ultimate decision. But obviously, my presidency would be different than Joe Biden's presidency in lots of different ways, including the fact that I'm a black woman and he's a white male, and we're going to see the world differently. Okay, I just came up with that on the spot, right? It's so easy, and yet she didn't do it. Now, she realized she had made a mistake, and she went back and tried to fix it repeatedly over the next few weeks before the campaign ended. But the damage was done. You gotta have gotten away from Joe Biden way faster and way more clearly. The thing that I suggested was she should have given a speech about how the border wasn't working. Look, Joe Biden and I tried these policies. They didn't work. We need to do better. We need to be stronger. And you know what? I'm going to appoint a Republican as the head of Department of Homeland Security to oversee the border, because this isn't a party problem. This is a country problem, and we need to fix it together, right? Which, by the way, I said at the time, just for the record, this is not hindsight being 2020, which leads me to reason number 4 that Kamala Harris lost. She was just a so-so candidate. I know a lot of people, Democrats, had a lot invested in Kamala Harris as like a generationally talented candidate. If you read the coverage in August and even into September, it is absolutely laudatory. She's drawing massive crowds. She's raising huge amounts of money. Everyone is so excited about her. She's the next Barack Obama, which, sidebar, don't compare politicians, Democrat or Republican, to Barack Obama. Whether you like Barack Obama or hate him, the guy is a generational talent, right? It's like comparing basketball players to Michael Jordan or LeBron James. They're one of one. Don't compare people to Barack Obama. Okay, anyway. So there was all this excitement and that Harris was amazing. And the truth of the matter, I think now we can admit, was Democrats were just excited that Joe Biden wasn't the nominee anymore. You could have nominated my mouse as the Democratic nominee, and I think a lot of Democrats would have been really, really excited, because my mouse isn't an old guy who looks like he's losing it. So I think we conflated that excitement for not Joe Biden with Harris is amazing. And I think over the course of the whole campaign, it became clear that she was not an amazing candidate. Yes, she did draw big crowds. And part of that is absolutely her. I think, again, a large part of that is the fact that people hated Donald Trump in the Democratic base and they didn't want Joe Biden. She waited way too long to give media interviews because she was nervous about it and didn't think she'd do a good job. And when she did give those interviews, she was not good. She, on message, kind of roamed all over the place. It was joy and optimism at the start, which I thought was very smart. But then that morphed into sort of economy, then an abortion, and then that morphed in at the end to democracy and fascism, which I'm going to get to in a minute. To me, the message should have been abortion. Just abortion down the line. I just think, again, she won women by 10. She needed to win women by 15. And I think that was the key to doing it, and she didn't. And again, the message was just too all over the place, which leads me to my final point, reason number 5 why Kamala Harris lost. I'm shorthanding it as democracy and fascism. Okay. When Joe Biden was still running, pre-June 27th debate, he had based his entire re-election candidacy on Donald Trump as a threat to democracy, and I'm the only one who can beat him. Do you remember those days? So the essence of that message was Trump will end or drastically curtail democracy. Look what he did in the 2020 election and on January 6th, which I thought was a pretty compelling argument. But you know who didn't think it was a compelling argument? Persuadable voters. It just did not move the needle. Any number of Democratic strategists told me that, this is pre-debate, that message for Biden was not working and was one of the reasons he was losing, and I would say was going to lose the race. So when Harris gets into the race and she's talking about joy and optimism, I thought, this is smart, right? She's learned the lesson. People do not think Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. They do not think he's America's Hitler. And when I say people, undecided voters, lots of liberal voters think that, but undecided swing persuadable voters did not buy that argument. But in the final weeks and specifically the final days of the campaign, it was all Donald Trump is a danger to democracy. He's a fascist. All these Hitler comparisons. And it just didn't sell with the same people that message didn't sell to earlier. It didn't work for Joe Biden, and it didn't work for Kamala Harris. Now, you can debate me until the cows come home about whether it should have, but I am telling you for a fact that message did not move persuadable voters. They were moved by, go back to the beginning of this video, the economy. They didn't think it was good, and they trust him more than her to handle it. And so when you're talking about democracy and fascism and Hitler and Nazi Germany, you're losing them, and Harris lost them. I mean, I just don't think it's more complicated than that. So those are my 5 reasons. Obviously, there are many more, but those are the 5 that jumped out at me in looking at the data and watching the campaign. As always, I'm asking you to do 4 things. Look, I'm going to continue making videos every day. I'm going to do live streams, shorts. I'm doing more of all that stuff. I'm really enjoying this. I feel like we have momentum. I also think it's in a really important time for nonpartisan, independent journalists to stand up and say, I'm not tied to any corporate media. I'm not tied to any particular party. I'm trying to give it to you transparently and authentically and straight. Whether you want to hear it all the time or not, I'm always going to be transparent. I'm always going to be authentic, and I'm always going to be honest. So if you want to be on board with that, and I hope you do, please do 4 things for me. 1, subscribe to this channel. We are nearing 50,000 subscribers. It would be a huge accomplishment for me to get over that number. 2, like this video. Easy. Just thumbs up it. 3, comment on this video. Do it for the algorithm. And 4, because I said we're trying to grow, tell 10 friends. All right, everybody, take care of yourselves. I will be back tomorrow, Friday, with a live stream, 1 p.m. Eastern Time live stream. Become a subscriber so that you get alerted to that live stream when we go live. Take care.